Hello, good morning. On behalf of Bruno Ferrari, Minister of the Economy, I would like to thank the United Nations Environment Programme, the Global Compact, the World Wildlife Fund, and global initiatives for putting together this Business for the Environment Summit. I would also like to thank Charles Emerson for introducing me and facilitating this plenary session. At the Ministry of the Economy, we appreciate initiatives that encourage social dialogue, and more so when it brings together the international community. It is through sharing knowledge, experience, and best practices that we will be able to tackle transcendental challenges that have no borders, such as the environment. Also, at the Ministry of the Economy, we are keenly aware of the importance for government and business to work together to share a wider understanding of the new issues that we are facing. It is clear to us that no public policy will have solid foundations without the participation of businesses, and no private effort will go far if it does not have the support of the public interest. President Calderón has been consistently vocal about the commitment of his administration regarding the environment. As President Calderón has acknowledged at different fora, governments need urgently to work together with the industry in search of solutions to the apparent dilemma of growth or sustainability. Our economies must continue to grow. It is unacceptable to even consider stopping our development. It is unthinkable, especially for developing countries, to cancel the future for the sake of restricting the use of traditional sources of energy. At the same time, it is urgent to mitigate the greenhouse gases, encouraging the efficient use of energy, utilizing renewable energies, and transforming industrial processes into sustainable ones. However, climate change is a complex issue. It is so because of the following reasons. In the international arena, climate change talks and commitments suppose the convergence of the views of a very large number of countries, with different levels of development, difficulties, and legal frameworks. Internally, because it implies different interests and realities by various sectors in the society. This demands hard and coordinated work by the branches of government, executive and legislative, as well as by federal, local, and municipal levels of government. It also requires close dialogue among numerous agencies and proper interaction between the government and the private sector. The federal government recently created the Public-Private Dialogue Working Group to coordinate relevant agencies and business representatives. In such dialogue, the private sector has expressed the following concerns. The first one, the need to agree on a methodology to develop the so-called baseline, the necessary reference to determine mitigation goals. 2, to be consultant on Mexico's future international commitments regarding mitigation and adaptation goals. 3, access to financial support and transfer of technology. And last, the impact of climate change policies on trade. The main priority at the Ministry of the Economy is to achieve high levels of competitiveness. Green economy and climate change policies are increasingly linked to competitiveness. However, we still have an important pending portfolio in this regard. Creating better competition conditions in key sectors, promoting regulatory improvement, increasing investment in innovation, empowering consumers, strengthening the internal market, and furthering Mexico's integration in the world economy. These 6 specific competitiveness challenges are the agenda and priority areas of the Secretary of Economy these days. From the international trade negotiations perspective, my area of responsibility, we face a particular dilemma. How do we continue to lower barriers to trade while also combating climate change? The chairman of the Working Group on Trade and Climate Change of the World Economic Forum, James Backus, has warned, we must prevent a collision between trade and climate change that would be disastrous for both. This working group, which I am honored to be part of, is currently addressing relevant questions, some of them essential to understand the linkages between trade and climate change. Is a global treaty the first best solution for both trade and climate change? And if so, should a global treaty on climate change include a possibility of trade restrictions or trade sanctions to ensure compliance with climate change commitments? Who should judge consistency with a global climate treaty? Should it be environmental jurists as part of a global environmental dispute settlement mechanism? Or if there is not such an environmental mechanism, should it be the World Trade Organization's panels and the World Trade Organization appellate body in the event of a dispute settlement? Finally, what should be the relationship between a global climate change treaty and the World Trade Organization rules? A global treaty on climate change should be the first best solution. We are already witnessing certain unilateral efforts in the world that may not be the best ways to address this issue. If national approaches prevail over a multilateral set of rules, this may promote or increase the risk of the adoption of measures that are inconsistent with the trade obligations of members under the World Trade Organization. In this regard, a multilateral climate change agreement could be the best vehicle to address climate change and trade issues in a coherent manner. In the absence of a climate change multilateral treaty, increases the need for World Trade Organization to provide a new framework of rules to address climate change and trade. If the latter does not occur, the great risk is that countries throughout the world will act at the national and subnational levels. If they were to act at the international level, they would very likely be agreeing to bilateral or plurilateral disciplines, but not fully multilateral ones, as it would be the ideal. A climate treaty should be incorporated into the World Trade Organization law to ensure that challenges of climate-related measures adopted by members can be judged by panelists and the appellate body considering World Trade Organization's obligations as well as rights under the climate treaty. This is far a better option than a case-by-case basis judgment of WTO panels. These are among the most relevant questions that are being currently analyzed and discussed by the international trade community today. Today, we are seeing the adoption of numerous domestic policies to address climate change that would very likely not survive the legal scrutiny in the WTO dispute settlement. Border measures such as customs duties, technical regulations, subsidies, taxes, among others. National governments intend, through these measures, to level the playing field for their local companies that have invested in green technologies vis-à-vis other foreign companies that have not. In addition, there is an acute concern that domestic producers may move their operations to countries with less strict environmental rules, or that domestic companies will face unfair competition by important, quote-unquote, dirty goods. The green agenda of the Doha Round negotiations is limited to the reduction or elimination of tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade in a very limited number of environmental goods and services, from energy-efficient light bulbs to water treatment plants. The objective is to reduce the price of such goods and services and, as a consequence, increase their availability in developing countries. Furthering this agenda is a must. Two examples of other issues to be considered multilaterally are to achieve a trade-off between the protection of intellectual property rights and the promotion of new green technologies, and at the same time allow reasonable access to such technologies. Or, well, to promote government procurement or climate-friendly goods and services. The environment challenges we face will need the best that all of us can give from our different trenches. I think it was very appropriate to refer to this Business for the Environment Summit as a call to action. This call to action reminds me of Antonio Gramsci's, the Italian intellectual, when he urged his contemporaries to address the social challenges of his time in the early 20th century, and I quote, "Educate yourselves, because we will need all your intelligence. Prompt yourselves, because we will need all your enthusiasm. And organize yourselves, because we will need all of your strength." Thank you very much.